Hello and welcome to ZIM Explore. I am Dr. Abstract, and in this ZIM Explore we're going to take a look at just how to get started with ZIM. I'm just feeling in the mood to show you the beginnings, like if you've never seen coding, never seen ZIM. Let's do some coding together, make it easy. Alright, so we'll dim the sound down here. We'll go to the ZIM site at zimjs.com. So let me F11 that and zimjs.com right there. zimjs.com. So ZIM is a JavaScript canvas framework, and that's the logo or the icon for ZIM, the Z, and there it is. ZIM is what it's called. Zimjs is just used for the site URL, and also if it needs to be distinguished from other ZIMs out there in the world with a hashtag or something, but otherwise it's just called ZIM. We can get coding quite easily. If you scroll on down here, there's a start right here. Start with the ZIM editor and our easy code. I may have possibly even done an Explorer through that one start app there. But the ZIM editor can also be found right here, editor. Normally, if we're professionally doing this, we go to the code page and we copy the template. This is an HTML page right here, or you put it into an HTML page, save it as, I don't know, code.html, and then you start coding your ZIM right down in there. The editor does the top part and the bottom part for us, so all we have to do in the editor is just put this stuff in here. So it's a little bit easier to just get started with the editor, but it is not very hard at all to, if you've ever heard of something like VScode, it's basically a text editor by Microsoft. It's free. It takes 2 minutes or even a minute to download and install. It's absolutely no problem. So most professionals would use something like an editor on their computer, and they would then, as a matter of fact, I've got an editor, it's right here. So this is what VScode looks like, and I go and I put some code in. I'm just making a shader right there. We copied this other code from Shader Toy, but that's it. ZIM made it easy. Hey, I can make a shader. All right, and anyway, once you're in VS Code, then I can right click here and open a default browser because I installed a little, what are these things called again? They're called extensions. So I have an extension called Open in Browser Live Server. Or you could just save it as an HTML page and view it. It's very easy. Shall we look at that one? Open in default browser. And so that makes these sort of op art pictures. That's what that's doing. But anyway, you don't need to get the, I've gone through, there's a ZIM Basics, for instance. Here, let's go find out where those are. Come back here. Under, let's see, where would you find that? Probably the Learn section. So if you want to learn about ZIM, here's a little bit about it, and that's getting started. We're going to do that together. We're going to explore that. But if you scroll on down, there's 2 video series. One is called Learn JavaScript with Creative Coding, and that's more if you don't even know JavaScript, if you don't know coding, how do we code? And that has it shows you how to get started, and it shows you all about code, what variables are, functions, loops, arrays, conditionals. There's about a half dozen things that you use over and over again, the coding basics. ZIM SKOOL will help you with that as well. That's more like a textbook, so you can go to there and read like a textbook. But there's also ZIM Basics right here. If you know JavaScript or coded before but don't know ZIM at all, then you would go to the ZIM Basics series, and that also has a way to get started and shows you how to start ZIM in the editor, VS Code, for instance, etc., etc., etc. But today we are just going to do some coding together in the ZIM editor, which is an online editor, as opposed to one that you would download to your desktop. Okay, and that's found right here, editor. So I have logged into the editor, and I would suggest you do the same. So up here you can log in, put your email in, confirm your email, and you can then save files. And yeah, which is handy. So you have then lists of files and stuff like that. There's a guide right here that tells you what you should do to work on the editor. So that's a little guide, or hopefully it's all pretty obvious what's happening. What is happening is over here there's a bunch of ZAPPS. So we call what we make in ZIM ZAPPS because they're apps. I don't really like the word apps. I mean, it's okay, it's cute, but not everybody makes an application all the time. It's application sounds like, oh, I don't know, Word or Excel or Photoshop. That's an application. Apps are, it's nice, it's a short word, apps, which means apps kind of cover almost everything these days. Like you have an app store and there's games in there. Well, are games an app? I mean, you know what I mean? So anyway, we put our own little spin on it and we call them ZAPPS. So it starts with a Z. Do you like that? So if we press that, we get a bunch of ZAPPS. And here's what that looks like. And now I've logged in, so I have my own files. So these are my own lists, so you can make lists. So here's a list of some art. Here's a list of the basics. I actually manage through here the basics, the advanced, it's alphabetical, not in order, and other lists as well. The ones for kids, there's the mid-level lists. So those are all my lists of files. What you would see is probably starting down here. So underneath I have certain saved ones, and there's here are the demos. So what we're looking at now is this last little bit, demos. If I open that up, you would see that as well. This is for the public. So there are the features right here. So these are ones that are listed on the ZIM site. Let's go to the ZIM site again. Oh, that's the forum. There is a forum. If you need any help, you can come on in here and ask questions, read about questions, do research on stuff, whatever you want. Okay, so that's the ZIM forum. How do we get there? You can get to the forum like that. I wanted to, where was I going? You guys remember? I opened up ZIM to show you something. The editor, oh yeah, on the front of ZIM, if we scroll down, you see feature demos right here. So this is talking about how ZIM has stuff for text. So you can make those, you can make connectors, and it's just like sliding along, but you can press it and see the animation, see special things. So these are all the features that ZIM has, and sometimes ZIM has them that other frameworks don't have them. Some of them are special, like dynamic parameters is basically special to ZIM, and it's a way that we handle things. All right, there's making physics, and dragging on a path is special to ZIM as well. No other framework does that. So if you press on any of these, then you would see, hey, look, there's us dragging, and here if we turn the path on, that's what the path looks like. And the path is user editable, so I can pick that up, and wow, isn't that amazing? So no other framework is doing that. Okay, and that's a ZAPP. So that would come down here under features. It's one of these guys. And then here's a bunch of basics. So there's our start. This is where we would, we're giving a lot of comments in the code to say, hey, start here. We'll help you make a circle. We'll help you throw the circle out in a garbage can. That's what that one does. I think I've already gone over that one in the past, so I don't want to go over it again now. I just want to code with you. But before then, I'm just taking you around, showing you some of the things. Okay, so here are a bunch of basic ones. That means they're easy, which means they're usually just a couple lines of code, and you can view the code and copy the code over. So tiling pictures, I'm not sure what that's going to be. Okay, so we got this tile. And if I go to code right here, it shows us the code. We're bringing in water gun, so a bunch of water guns. And we're loading those in. It's from that path. And when it's complete, we're making a tile of water guns. That's kind of what we're doing in here. And if you wanted to, you could copy this code over and then do it yourself. All right. So that's a little bit more complicated because we've got a bunch of pictures or images that we're bringing in, which means there's a little bit more to do. Simple animation along path. Oh, okay. There we go. Remember how we kind of saw that? So if we go look at the code, we made some points. Now we didn't make those. It says here that we've got a tool. So there's a tool right here. Let's show you. Copy this and paste. This is a tool that allows you to, you can go find some paths if you want, or what's called a squiggle here. So here's various squiggles there. I've just picked that squiggle. Then I can get the code that makes that squiggle. So why don't I copy that right now? That's this squiggle we're seeing here. And go back to the demo. I cannot edit here because this is the code for that finished one. But I can use this little arrow right here to copy the code over top of my code. And I'll go, yeah. Oh, it's just too bad. I would have liked to show you the coloring that I was doing, but whatever. That just happened to be the latest one that I was looking at. Over on the right was a kind of coloring book thing. Okay. Anyway, I've copied this over, and now if I hit test here, that's my own. It's actually pretty similar, isn't it? That's my own copy of it running, which means I can make changes here. Let's see what we got. So there's a bunch of code right here. Yeah. So grab that, and I'm going to put it right in here under points. So now we've got a different set of points in there, and I'm going to test it. Okay, that's a different path. That's the other path that we copied. And what are we doing? We're making this path not interactive. We've also got a triangle. So there's a triangle that we're calling a plane, I guess. Like a little airplane is following it. We're rotating it so that it points along the path. So otherwise, a triangle normally points up when you make it. We don't want a triangle that's pointed up moving along the path. So we've rotated it 90 degrees. Sorry if this is a bit small. Let me see if I can make that bigger for you to see. Oops. Right. Okay, I guess that's pretty good there. All right, so we've rotated it 90 degrees, and we're adding it to the stage so that we can see it. Otherwise, it just is made, but it's not put anywhere. And then we're animating it, and we're animating it along the path with an ease of linear. We're looping it, and we're waiting. Once it arrives, we wait 1 second, and then we loop it again, and we're animating it in that much time. So there's some information about animating. It looks like I could change it here. Rewind true. I hit Ctrl+S to save it. Now as it goes along, it's going to end up flipping around and rewinding. Okay, so that's our animating along the path. I can't drag it though. To drag it, we would have to add comma drag colon true in here. And so now I can drag it. As soon as you go drag colon true, it assumes you just want to drag it. So there I am dragging it now along that path. If you want to drag and animate, then you have to turn start paused colon false. So you have to specifically say, no, 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 don't pause to start, and that will override our drag. So now I can do both. I can pick it up and drag it. Sorry, my mouse went off the screen there. I can pick it up and drag it, or have it move along. Anyway, that was just happened to be a zap that I looked at. So we were going through zaps right now. These are basic things, so quite easy. Then there's mid-level ones that are, oh, you know what? A better way to look at these would be to do the EXPO. So if I hit EXPO here, then I see little thumb, these are like expos of it. I see little thumb pictures. I'm sure there's a better word than thumb pictures. Okay, so these are mid-level ones, so a little bit harder than the basics. Okay, don't those look fun? And you can click any of these and see. So what is this? Cycle through pictures using a ZIM book. So I press that, and what have we got? Oh, now I pick up these corners, and I can go through them like a book. All right, and you can see the code on how to make a book. That's the idea. We're almost through our zaps. Oh, I was looking at the expo, wasn't I? Where was that expo? Did it just come back to here, the editor? Okay, I don't know. Anyway, there's also, aside from the mid, there's also finally the advanced. Well, not quite finally. Down here, advanced ones. These are harder ones. Okay, and there's also full ones, full apps that were made that are like just a bit more complete. Here's an angel maker, for instance. Whee! Okay, and I can save that out, and there, I've just saved the angel. Click on it. There's the angel that I made. All right. So ZIM has a very easy way to be able to load pictures into it and save pictures out of it. It's basically just, hey, load a picture. It's called make a new loader. And then if you press on it or drop pictures on it, it will load the pictures in. And then if you want to save it, it's loader.save, and it will save it out like that. So yay. All right, you can check out. But like I said, this is a more complicated one where we've got, what's it called? Some like, I can pick up this and move it around. That's in the ZIM pen anyway. So this is all done using the ZIM pen. That's a pretty funny looking angel, isn't it? And it's looking a little bit better now, although it looks like a crab. A crab. By the way, you've also got a full view of these things, and I can see the code, like I said there, a full view. I could bring the code over and start playing with it, but like I said, this is a more advanced, complete one, so it will have more code. You want to see what that looks like? Not too bad, huh? You know what? That's not too bad for like a more complete app like that. We also put in some, here are the docs. So these are the docs right here. And the promo, if you go to the promo for this, so there's the promo. These are also the docs. So I can press, if I want to know about things, like what's a button, I press here, and there's the docs on the button. Or if I was in, and the docs kind of tell you all about it. If I see these, I could copy that. There's also the docs right here. So if I hit docs there, I could go button, enter, and here are the parameters for a button. There's lots of things that we can tell a button to do. There's a description about the button. There's examples for the buttons. We made all the docs before we had the editor. Probably one day we'll get it so that I can just click on here and it will open up in the editor, but right now you would copy it. So if we wanted to make this button right here, I could copy it like that. I could come over onto the left-hand side. Let's clear this side. Yes, I'm going to clear it. And I'm going to paste the button. And test. There's the button. Click. It zogs clicking. So that means if you F12, you can see the zogs. There it says clicking. So each time I click, it says clicking. This is called the console. And zog means we're logging, a ZIM logging to the console. You can also do console.log like that. That's the raw JavaScript way. ZIM is built on JavaScript, so you can use JavaScript in here. ZIM is JavaScript as well. But we have a shortcut for that, so that you don't have to type that whole thing, called zog. All right, and that's the way that we can log with ZIM. So what we're basically saying here, you can see this whole thing, is we make a new button, and that's how the dimensions of our button, 200 wide, 60 high. That's what it's going to say, click. And we're centering it on the screen. And when we tap it, we call this arrow function. That looks a little bit weird. That's just raw JavaScript, not ZIM, just raw JavaScript. It's called an arrow function. It means do the stuff inside these squiggly brackets. It's a short form. Another way to do it would say function here. So this is called an anonymous function. Hey, do this anonymous function. Another way to do it is do it. Okay, so now we're saying when we tap, call the function do it. Then we would have to make the function do it. That's how you would make a function. And in here, we could do something. We could say frame.color equals red. We may have to update the stage.update. Whoops, no squigglies in there, or quotes in there. So now when we click it, the stage goes red. Okay, so what's happened is as we tap on our button, it calls the function do it. Here's the function do it. It says to set the frame's color because we're given F for the frame. The frame is sort of like, it's the framework, okay? And the framework has certain things such as the color of the stage. This is what's called the stage. And then it also has the outer color. So the outer color looks like this. F.outerColor is equal to blue. Now when we click it, the outer color is blue and the color is red. So the frame is what also fits it inside of the window like that. You see how it's fit in there? And often when we make final products, we don't have an editor like this. It's just all in the browser window. So for instance, why don't we go to ZIM and look under examples, and any of these examples will just pop up in the browser window here. Okay, so it now fits in the browser window like that. We have no editor. Now this, by the way, is called end slicing, and it's a technique where you can repeat certain regions of picture, end slicing. And we made that for a latest version of ZIM. Okay, so usually ZIM opens up not in an editor. These are all of the many, many examples. And ZIM can be about as complicated as this. This is a very complicated app. It's almost like looking at Photoshop, where we can draw like this. And you see how that went on a layer? I can make other layers. I've got presets here, so I could draw what's a city. I put that on the same layer. I could change, well, if I go to this layer and draw some grass, that's pretty good. Now if I put this down, I've just moved the grass down, and now the grass is behind the city. And I move it up. This is called the organizer. So what it's doing, this thing is organizing this bunch of layers. Here's a bunch of, this is all ZIM. It's a whole bunch of components that make the lines look different. And now that it's looking different, I can come back here. How do I get out of here? Close this. And now my pen is different because I've changed it. All right, and we can delete, and there's all sorts of functions that we can do up here. This is all ZIM as well, where we've got, all this stuff is ZIM. So that's a complicated app that we've made. There's games, there's fun things. This is an app for kids. Oh, you've seen enough dragging along paths. This is more dragging along paths. It's not like ZIM doesn't only drag along paths. There's tons more things that we can do. Okay, those are some of them. Here are collections of things that we can make in ZIM. And these are mini sites. So a bunch of shaders, a bunch of things that were new in ZIM 015. This is a bunch of the ZIM beads. Here are particle emitters. So, whoa, this is an emitter itself that is doing that. But that's what a particle emitter shoots it out, and now the gravity's coming back. Do you want to make an emitter? Let's make an emitter together. We come back here, and when I press a button, well, I can make the emitter happen all the time, or I could make the emitter happen when we press a button. Here's what it looks like if we do it all the time. New emitter. We don't see it because we didn't add it to the stage. Where do we want to see it? If we want to center it, now our emitter is on top of the button. Okay, which is a good place for it to be, but I only want the emitter to go when we click the button. So basically, that means we're going to have to tell the emitter to spurt inside here. We could make it here. I mean, this almost works if I just do this. And as soon as I'm emitting, I don't need to stage.update anymore. Stage.update is saying, I've made a change, show it. But if we're doing an emitter, obviously it's updating the stage, so to speak. This thing is called the stage that it's on. So now if I test, it has not made the emitter yet. But when I click it, there's the emitter. Except the emitter didn't stop. Not only that, if I click it again, I now actually have two emitters. And click it again, I've got more emitters. More and more emitters. That's like too many emitters going. So I don't want to make a new emitter every time I click on the button. Right? So what we do is we make the emitter outside. It doesn't really matter exactly where, but we can put it here. We need to give it a name. So const emitter, or we could call it our own whatever, reward. All right. So what we're doing is we're saying this emitter is going to be stored in reward. That's so that in here we can say reward.spurt. And what spurt means, we have to say how many. Do 20. Okay, however, it's not quite right yet because we've still centered the emitter. So one thing we could do is just not center the emitter. So that means we make it and don't add it. And then we could say reward.center and then .spurt. So that's one thing. Since it's not added yet, we don't see it. And when I click, it gets added and it spurts. But what we usually do is we'll just leave the center up here. And we usually tell the emitter to start paused. Start paused, true. Oops, true, like that. And we're running out of room there. Just to view, it doesn't matter if it goes off. All right, so our new emitter, we're telling it to start paused. We're still centering it, so that's fine. And then all we have to do is spurt it. So every time we press, we're going to spurt it. Ready? Spurt. Spurt. Oops. Spurt. Spurt. All right. And if we didn't care about changing the color, maybe don't, spurt. Spurt. Okay, and we might want to play a sound that comes along with that, which we can do. We can also emit other things. Right now, by default, it's emitting some different size, some different circles. But we could emit more buttons. Do that. So the object that we're going to emit is a new button, which will be kind of silly. We'll just do a default button, comma, start pause true. So do you see what we've done? We've added some more parameters. We have these squiggly brackets here that allow us to tell us the parameter name and its value. The parameter name is what object are we spurting, and that's what we're going to spurt. So now it spurts a bunch of default buttons. Okay, pretty ridiculous. If we said new label, and we can say hello, now it spurts a bunch of those things. All right, or we could say a new rectangle, and we could make that rectangle 100 by 100 and make it red. Now it's going to spurt a bunch of red rectangles. There are all sorts of other things that we can do with the emitter, just like wonderful emitters. Probably, let's see, under ZAPPS, maybe we could look up emitters. So there's ways to search here. Emitter, like that. That will already find a bunch of them if the emitter happens to be in the title. But I think under advanced here, we can also say, are they in the tags? Okay, so it's already, I think, searching the tags as well. Now that we've gone advanced, that's turned on. Before, and so look at all these things have emitters in them. Okay, because anything that we make in ZIM, we know what parts we used when we made it. It's automatically done, and those come under the tags. So if we look under our ZAPPS here, remember these things are the tags, basically, right there. All right, and so there we've got them all, and there's bubbles. So you see, those are emitters. Those bubbles are going up like that, and we're making bubbles. So, oops, there's ZAPPS, bubbles, a circle emitter. This is an emitter of some circles. Gas. I don't know, right now that's just something that's following, but I bet you once it gets to the end, it does an emitter. Oh, it emitted some clouds. Disappear. That's an emitter as well. Poop. Okay. Cute little drone. That's an emitter. Oh, this little stuff coming out the bottom, those are emitters. Plasma. That's an emitter. Oh, you can drag this around even. Plasma gun. All right, you get the idea. That's a lot of different examples of emitters. Often they're with rewards. So here's a little puzzle that we have to scramble, or unscramble, I guess would be the word. This is Sanskrit. So a group of people that work on Sanskrit came, and some students actually want to make an app, an e-learning app for them. And there we go. We're emitting the actual Sanskrit. So once it gets solved, we provide a reward. And this is a demo that we made for them so that they could easily make a puzzle. That's quite easy to make this puzzle right here. Yes. Okay, we got it. Boop. And away it goes. And once again, you can go grab the code and see how that's made. So emitters are often used as rewards for any other really cool emitters, motion controller and emitter. Now the emitter is following our motion. What about a beautiful particle emitter? So now the emitter is following our cursor. Isn't that beautiful? You can see how that's done. That's with what's called a sync. It's basically sending out particles, and the particles are trying to go where the cursor is. It's almost like a magnet or a gravity well. Woo, isn't that neat? Okay, once again, you've got the code here to be able to do that. There's our emitter, and we're telling it to go after that sync. We're saying that we're emitting a shape. So this is some information about, so you can emit particles, or you can actually emit lines. Lines basically is what we're doing there. And then we're moving the sync. We're wiggling the sync. Oh, so this is a little bit trickier because if we're not moving the mouse at all, so let's view that again. If we're not moving the mouse, we wiggle the sync. Wiggle just means go back and forth. Do you want to see some wiggling? I'll show you some wiggling. And that's why it's moving about like that. But then once it detects that there's a mouse moving, then it starts to follow the mouse. So now it's following my mouse over here. And when the mouse goes away, it should go back to wiggling. It didn't. I think it should go back to wiggling anyway. So let's do some wiggling together. We'll test this side again. What should we wiggle? Do you want to make this button really hard to click on? I mean, this isn't very good for usability, but it can be kind of fun. All right, so we'll just write in here. The order doesn't really matter. We will say dot wiggle like that. And what we want to wiggle is we'll wiggle the X property. And we'll start it off where it currently is. So actually, if you don't put any value in, null, it's now, in the past, you'd have to put something in there. So you'd have to say, well, the X property it's not quite the center of the stage, which would be W divided by 2. You see how we're given the frame, we're given the stage, we're also given the width and height of the stage. So you might think the starting point would be the width divided by 2. But that's not quite right because of the following. So let me comment out the wiggle right now. And I will center it, and then we'll do what's called an outline. Outline. Let me show you that. You see this little round circle? I've outlined our button. That little round circle means that's where it's positioned. So the X would be quite halfway. Unless we center, that's called the registration point. If I center reg, now that little round circle's right in the middle. Therefore, we could wiggle around when we do the wiggle here. Now that we've centered the registration point, that would work. So what it's going to do is wiggle about this point right here, halfway in the X. So this is 0 in the X, and this is the width in the X. This is 0 in the Y up top here, and that's the height in the Y. So 0, 0 is up in the corner here. You can tell if you make a new grid. Almost. Okay, and you see our little cursor. So over here, 1024 is the width, and if we go down to the bottom, 768, whatever, I have to kind of go slowly towards the bottom, or it's tucked underneath. I think the very, very bottom's tucked underneath this red bar, just to avoid some flashes. Okay, so let's get rid of that though. That's just to help say what the X and Y's look like. So that would be good. We're going to wiggle. Right now it's not doing any wiggling. I don't need the outline anymore. We're going to wiggle about the middle. And how much? At least 100 up to, say, 400. Okay, so that's how much we're going to wiggle. Minimum and maximum. And it would go on the other side. So it would be 100 this way or that way. It's going to wiggle at least that much up to 400. And then we have the time. How fast do we want to make it wiggle? This is in seconds, so we can make it 1 second to 2 seconds. Right? And here's what happens. Now our button is wiggling back and forth. That's a little bit much. Why don't we drop it and say 20 to 50 or 20 to 60. And let's speed it up a bit. It doesn't have to go as far. 0.5 to 1. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Okay. Click me! It's saying, oh, click me! And this thing is just wiggling back and forth. If you want to wiggle, the Y, then you copy this and you can wiggle the Y. I'm sorry, I have to put it on the next line there. Wiggle the Y. Let's wiggle it in the Y. This time, the height divided by 2. And we can leave the same amounts. And now it's wiggling up and down as well as, it's like a little game. Okay, but we don't have to wiggle a button. That could have been an alien or something like that. Do you want to see how to wiggle a picture? Yeah? After all, this is a ZIM Explore. Whoa, do you like that? We may as well do a little bit of exploring and see how we can bring in a picture instead of wiggling a button. Okay, but you get the wiggle. That's what it does in the background is animate, and animate is a very powerful thing in ZIM and very easy. That's .animate. And we can animate, for instance, if we started, it's .scale, .sca to 0. So we're going to set the scale to 0. That's the short form for setting scale to 0. And then we could animate the scale to 1. Okay, that is in a default of 1 second, but maybe we'd want it a bit shorter. Now it was 0.5 seconds. Or we could keep it longer, and we could make it elastic. So this is the ease, quote, elastic out. Wow, wow, wow. See that? Test. Wow, wow, wow. We might even want it longer. 1.5 seconds. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, so that's a ZIM animate, and it's very powerful. There's more to it than just that. Comment that out. We actually would want to bring it back to a wiggle. Why don't we see it anymore? Oh yeah, scale 0. So you can animate many, many things. Like you can animate the color of it, the position X and Y of it, obviously, the scale, the alpha, so that's how transparent it is, the rotation of it, we could animate its rotation, etc. One thing to watch out, if you do animate the rotation, look at the difference between this. So let's comment out the wiggle for now. We're animating, in this case, the rotation to, say, 360. That's one time around. And I won't bother elastic. I'll just make it 1 second. Okay, that looks pretty good, huh? I mean, it's not bad. This looks really bad if we just centered it. All right, so now it's rotating about its registration point. By the way, with rotation like that, too, you see how it looks pretty good, but what if we made it loop? So to make it loop, loop is a parameter that's far away, and this is one of the good features about ZIM, is you can do parameters in 2 ways. Parameters are these things that this is a parameter. That's the width, the height parameter, and the color parameter. You have to do these in order. You would look at the docs and you would say, oh, rectangle, rectangle, just like that, has a width, a height, a color, a border width, a corner. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't mind, for that reward that we were getting, I saw a bunch of red rectangles, but I couldn't see a border on them. So it might actually be nice if when we emit them, then we put a border of dark and 2. So now when we emit, if we can click on that, we can see the border on the rectangle. Okay, You got it? What if, though, we wanted to get to somewhere else? So when we animate, look at all of the things that there are in animate. Animate. Now, that's not very many things. Stop animate is because we jumped down to rectangle, and animate, I guess, came first. Look at all those options we have. We want to do this one. We want to not rewind, but loop. Where do you see loop? Right here, loop. So we would have to go and do all these first. Props, time, ease, call, parameters, wait, weighted call, weighted parameters, loop. So we would have to do them in order. This is the props. This is the time. If we don't care about the ease, although I do kind of, we'd have to put null here. And then we'd have to call, like this is the callback. So what function to call when the animation's done? Well, I don't want a function, null. What parameters do these get? Null. Okay, can you see how that would be rather annoying? I'd have to count how many nulls to get to loop. So what we did with ZIM is we made it so that you can do parameters in two ways. And what I'll do is I'll just show you down here in the rectangle. So say we didn't care about, we can do it this way. So like that, we put in a squiggly bracket there and a squiggly bracket at the end. Okay? And that's called an object literal. But the object literal needs property names. Width, colon, 100. Height, colon, 100. So you see that? Those are actually default, so we don't even really need them. I think they're default. Or maybe it's 50, I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm going to drop this down so we can see them a bit better. It's giving me an error right now because we haven't given property names to all of them. This is the color. This is the border color. The one thing is now that we're doing it this way, we need to know what the parameters are called. So we would look at the docs to find out. And this is the border width, like that. Okay, so if that's what I was doing, the width, height, color, and border width, there'd be no point in doing this because those are the parameters in order. But say I didn't need those, I can take them out. And if I didn't need that, I can take them out. And I can set this to red and this to border width of 10. Okay, so that means the order doesn't really matter. I could have put this one up here. Okay, even though, except for the comma. Right, we need to put commas in there. So when we use the squiggly bracket here, the object literal it's called, or a configuration object, we put the name of the parameter, whatever name's in here, followed by its value, and the order doesn't matter. And we can just use one of these. Okay, so if I were rewinding here, I want to get, so let's see if this works. And I click it. Now it's making a rectangle. And if we only provide a border width and color, it's like it doesn't even fill the rectangle. That allows us to get like invisible rectangles. If I wanted to, I could say color, colon, blue. Now we would see blue. Okay. All right, so that's called the ZIM Duo technique because we can do parameters two ways. It was invented in ZIM Duo, version 2 of ZIM, and we love it. Many years we thought we invented it. Well, we did invent it. And then eight years later, my kid said to me, "Dad, Python does that." I was like, really? So apparently Python, well, I know Python now. I don't, I've never coded in Python, so I had no idea that they did that. They allow you to specify parameters in a similar way with equal signs in here, but so be it. All right, so there we go. But up here, what we wanted to do is I wanted to show you rotating. So we've got the rotation. Did you see that? How it rotates like that? That looks pretty bad, doesn't it? It would look better if we center regged it. So that's the first step, center reg it. Great. Now it rotates about the center. But if we wanted to keep on rotating, well, watch what happens. So what I want to do is get to loop colon true. So this is a bit tricky because we already have the squiggly brackets of an object literal here. This is used to handle all sorts of properties. For instance, if we wanted to, we could set the scale to 0 and do the rotation and the scale. Nice. Okay, so this object literal is used to pass in all of the properties and the values that we want to animate. So we can do a bunch of different ones all at the same time. Okay, We could do alpha too, so we could set the alpha. Anyway, I don't want to do all that stuff, so I'm going to comment that out. And we're just working with rotation. And what we want to do, though, is get to the loop, but that's a little bit later. I don't want to go null, comma, null, comma, null, etc. I just want to say this is our props that we're animating. This is our time. And then I want to get right to loop. So what I have to do is put a squiggly brackets around both sides of this. So it's a little bit tricky because it's squiggly brackets inside squiggly brackets. All right. So here we can go, the props are those properties. This is the time. And then we go, oops, if I can hit a comma, this is loop, colon true. There we go. All right, let's have another look. We're animating, props, rotation to 360, time, 1 second, and loop, colon true. This is pretty nice. It looks good. The only tricky bit is our props could be another object literal with more stuff in it. We are on par with our animation, on par with GreenSock. GreenSock or GSAP is the best way to animate in JavaScript on the DOM, so HTML text. ZIM can actually animate HTML text too. It's built on CreateJS, and CreateJS built us TweenJS, which animates HTML text. We've added a whole bunch of stuff to the TweenJS, or CreateJS's tweening engine. Many things like animating on paths, series, sequences, etc., etc., etc. And we've changed the format to act like this. So CreateJS animates in a different way, kind of. It does this thing called chaining. You see how we're chaining? This is chaining, chain, chain, chain. That's chaining. Well, they chain on the animation object, which means you can't chain an animation onto the thing that you're wanting to animate, which we don't like because we chain everything onto the object. So we had to redo all that stuff and made ZIM very powerful, and just as powerful as, if not more powerful than GreenSock, GSAP. What GSAP, though, does is it mixes in its properties like that. So you have one of these things, okay, an object literal or a configuration object, and then any properties you want to do, you just put right in here like so. Okay, so if you're coming from GSAP, we don't do it that way. That mixes in a whole bunch of properties with other settings that aren't properties. So instead, we have a props here, like that, and we make yet another object to specifically hold the properties that we're animating, like so. Sorry, got periods when I want commas. Okay, you got that? So anyway, we only really have the props of the rotation at the moment, so that's no problem. In a time and loop true. Isn't that nice? You ready? Refresh. But do you see what's going on? It's like rum, 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 rum. That is the easing. So the easing is saying start off slow, go faster, and then slow down. Start off slow, go faster, and slow down each time. So basically, we don't want our default ease. We want an ease of linear, like that. So with an ease of linear, now it's spinning like it's not stopping and starting. Okay, I just wanted to mention that because we had done a rotation on there, and you might be going, oh, I'm rotating this, but it looks awful. Help! Ah, it looks awful. All right, well, that's not really the case. It was just the easing on it. Anyway, we don't even really want to rotate our thing. Weren't we wanting to wiggle it instead? Well, we'll leave it like that, I suppose. And then we'll bring back the wiggle, and we'll make it not even a button. Instead, it's going to be some picture that's wiggling, and then we'll call it a day. Anytime, by the way, on these ZIM Explorers that it's gotten long and your brain is going, ah, then you're always welcome to put it on pause and go get a cookie and come back. All right, there are many ZIM Explorers, 100 ZIM Explorers. There's hundreds of ZIM bubblings. ZIM bubblings are anything that's new in ZIM. There's hundreds of learning tutorial videos in ZIM with me talking like this. So you are welcome to go find any of those at any time. Just put it on pause and go get a cookie. You have everything here. We've given you absolutely everything so that you can code from scratch. If you didn't know how to code at all, you could start and learn how to code. That's called the code zero. So the code zero just says, hey, if you've never heard what a variable is, let us talk about that. It's sort of philosophical. It's not necessarily for kids, but it's it's sort of explained in a very simple manner. We have lots of resources that like ZIM Kids for kids, so you may as well use those. ZIM Kids has an editor. It has tutorials. Do you want to see what those look like? So if we go, actually this links into ZIM Kids, and we do want to get assets, so I'm going to click that. But if you want to find out how to get there without just clicking that, let's see, because sometimes it's a different banner there. This is cycling what's new. Then kids are found in the gold bars. Gold. And if we come on down here, here's the kids right here, ZIM Kids. There's ZIM School. School is for older people. And school is, I guess it could be from the basics, I suppose. So we are going to go to the kids here though. So kids. And there's a bunch of tutorials for kids. Each tutorial has 3 levels, which focus on different things. It actually starts here. These are programming basics tutorials: variables, functions, loops, events, conditionals, etc. We've just introduced a set of tutorials on how to bring in assets. So at the moment they're up top. We may move the assets to underneath the basics. It gives people some fun things to look at. These are pretty abstract, I suppose, whereas these are cool pictures, especially for kids, so they like seeing those guys. Then we have sets of bugs and things to make, as well as in behind here a whole bunch of ZAPPS that are ready for kids and all sorted out. And we've got an editor called Slate. So there's Magic. Magic is like a textbook for kids right here, talking about things that you can see, the display objects, how to make a circle, etc. What we're doing there, how to do parameters and animations, functions and events. So this is like a textbook in here for kids, which means you may like them too. And if we go back here, there's spells, which is the docs, but a kids version of the docs. And then there are ZAPPS, which is the same as basically going into here, which show editor versions, but the editor that we're using is called Slate. So Slate is the ZIM Kids editor. It's just basically the same as the editor, except it's sort of geared towards kids. And then we also have assets, and the assets are, we made a bunch of AI ones just recently. What did we say we were gonna move about? Did we have anything in particular that we want to? We could make this monster wiggle. Shall we make a monster wiggle? Which one? How about this one? Looks kind of silly. All right, so this one's called AI Monster 17, I guess. So I'm going to copy that. There is a way that we can, so with kids, we just select that and then we hit save. So update right there. And you see how on this side, it's brought in AI Monster. We had already saved something else as well, but now we have AI Monster 17. What that means is in the kids section, we can go new pick. Can do it. And then we choose the same name, AI Monster 17, like that. And put it in there, .center. And save it. There it is. Okay, so that's how it's all works out on the kids side, is at any time they can go into their assets and pick various assets. There's this thing called sprites as well. I mean, there's tons of stuff in ZIM. I can't show you everything in this one Explore, but we're just poking around. So that's how it's done on the kids side. We kind of have that ability on the main editor. I can't remember if we... So instead of the button there, I'll comment out the button. The 2 slashes mean a comment. And I guess we'll leave the comment up above it. And put new pick there. So it's broken because it doesn't quite work as easily as that. So on this side, we need to do... we would normally load this in a frame. That's a broken picture icon. So we would normally do this in the ZIM frame. which is available for us if I go out to the ZIM site here, ZIM, and go under code. Remember this thing right here, the template? Right here is the frame, right here. And that's built into the editor. So we do not have direct access to it because it's already in the editor. But if you were coding out here, here's where you would put your picture. You would say, please load my picture. Then we could use the picture. So in the editor here, we have a system. It's F.ZAPP_assets equals. And you would put AI monster 17 here. Except we would have to add .png. So it's a PNG image rather than an ID. We have an option in our assets. If we wanted to, we could load these squiggly brackets and we could put ID is AI monster, source src is the image, location, and we enter squigglies. Okay, so then we could use the ID. Now this would work. Oh, we have to say the path too, but we'll get to that. Anyway, that's with an ID when it doesn't have the name of the file on the end, or whatever we want there. I could put AAA, and then I would have to use AAA here. Okay, but usually I don't bother doing that. We did it for the kids to make it a little bit easier, but we built that in, and so you know, the easiest way for us to do it is just say the name of the file and put the name of the file here. All right, the only thing we're missing though is where is this file? What is the path? So that looks like this. F.ZAPP_path is equal to, for the editor actually works like this. That's okay, that's saying go to the root of the ZIM site and load it from there. But you can also put https://zimjs.org/assets. Okay, that would be a more absolute path. And what that's basically saying is if I copy this into here, like so, and then I put the name back on it here, this thing, okay, see I'm combining those two and put that right on there. So now it says zimjs.org/assets/AI monster.png, enter, and there it is. Okay, so we're trying to get to that picture on the ZIM site. And then back here, wherever, we're saying, hey, let's load that one from this path. The nice thing about that is if I wanted to get two monsters, I would, different monsters, I would put it in an array. So that's a list of things. So now I can go monster 16 and monster 17. So now I have monster 17 and monster 16 and any of other of those assets. So any of the ZIM assets that are available there. If you scroll on down here, you see how it says See Assets for images? Press on that. Oops, it left my editor. Should maybe open that up in a new window. So I think my editor is gone now. Yeah, I'd have to go back to get the editor, which will be fine. I mean, oh, it's actually working now because it loaded. But this thing right here says See Assets. And when I right-click and open in New Tab, here's another way into assets. All of those assets are available for you. So there's a bunch of trees. That's called a sprite sheet, so it's a little bit different. Anyway, those are all of the assets and different ways to view all those things. And you can get your own assets too and link to them if you want. Where the heck are we? Back here. Okay, so right now we're bringing in monster 17 and monster 16. It doesn't really matter, but why don't we change those? 16 and 17. Okay, and we're using monster 17. If we use monster 16, which monster was that? Okay, we could wiggle both of them if we wanted to. So there we go. We're loading in the certain assets. And that's how you would do sound too. There's also sound. So we could make a sound. Do you want to do that? It only takes a moment here, I suppose. Where did we see all those assets again? The sounds are down here at the bottom. So images, miscellaneous, there's some sounds. Oh, not all sounds though. Some of them are. There's a bleep. Here's a car starting. So that would be kind of a funny sound to make. I'm just looking to see if we had our way into, what was that? That was the ZIM site. Let's go back to the kids in the gold. Kids. And this links us into the assets here and hit sounds. So there's a bunch of sounds here. Let's see, we've got voices. I think there's a monster sound, creatures. So these are some creature sounds. I like that one, huh? That's just called monster. So that's probably monster.mp3, available in assets. If you were kids, you would press on it, then you could just access it via monster. But now, if we want monster mp3, we would go comma, quote, monster.mp3. Probably, could possibly be a WAV file. All right, and we come on down here, and when we tap and do it, here's the do it, we can go new odd, monster.mp3.play, which isn't the best way to do it. I'll tell you why in just a second. Maybe you can imagine. Nice. I think you can hear that, can't you? Yeah, you should be able to hear that. All right, we're making a new monster object each time, when really we just need to do that once. So const sound or whatever, growl, growl, how do you spell growl, is equal to a new odd. Okay, and then we say growl. It's basically the same as our emitter. We make the emitter once. Where did we make that emitter? Here it is, reward. Okay, so we made the emitter once. We make the growl once. We spurt the emitter every time we press. We play the sound every time we press. By the way, you can't play sound right away. You have to interact. You have to click something or drag something or whatever before you can play a sound. And we're fine here because so often when we make a game, for instance, we'll have a pane at the start. This is what a pane looks like. New pane. Play or whatever dot show. All right, so when we close that, we can then start playing a background sound. And when we close it, we can say, I don't know, play game here. So that's the function that we're going to call. Make a function called play game. Play game, like that. Inside here, we can now play a song, a background sound, and we can make it loop. Do you want to see that? Hits, backgrounds. Yeah. Okay. Flowers of Osaka. Oh, I don't know about that. Tales of the Isle. Resist the zombies. Whisper of the Forest. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure. Choose something short. Otherwise, oh, drill. All right. Anyway, you would pick one of those. Flowers of Osaka. Okay, great. And then we go back to our editor here. We would have to import that sound. Flowers of Osaka.mp3, like so. We're not even, that's so long that we're not even going to be able to hear it repeat. But back in this play game right now, we would put new odd. We're going to play the game only once. Like, well, once the pane's gone, like we only click on the pane once. So we're fine making a new odd called Flowers of Osaka.mp3. And we could put the loop here if we want, or we could put it in the play. Either one, I think it's the next parameter. So play, no, this is the volume. So often we want our background to be a little bit less, like 0.2, and this is loop true. Okay, so now when we play, We have our background sound, and that will eventually loop. Actually, let's set that to 1. And now when I press, it's a really bad emitter, isn't it? And we don't have any buttons to stop playing, so it's a little bit annoying. Why don't we just comment it out for now? But anyway, that's the system that would allow you to start a sound. Our spurting of our rectangle is a little bit boring for a monster. Also, you hear how long the sound goes, but the emitter didn't go that long. So there's all sorts of other things you could make a very nice emitter. We might want the little monster to disappear, so that would look like this. Monster dot. Do we have a monster? No, it's just a pic. So we would go const monster is equal to this new picture, so that we could then say monster.dispose would be if you never want to use the monster again. Dispose is a way. Monster. What is the problem? Oh, I must be inside of the emitter. Yeah. So I got to watch it here. Here's the emitter. This is the object. This is the start paused. There's the centering. I don't want to be in the emitter when I'm doing it. I want to be in doit. So in here is where we want to monster.dispose. But then why is it talking if we dispose it? So we probably don't want to dispose the monster. We could make it smaller. Monster.scale. We could animate. So ready? Let's animate the scale. Animate. It'll kind of work. Scale to 0.5. Ready? Problem is, the next time I press it, it's already 0.5, so it doesn't animate any smaller. So we'd have to keep track of what scale we have it and reduce the scale. I think there's a relative scale, and that might be a little bit tricky to explain, but let's try this. It's getting bigger. Yeah. Okay, so what's happening is it's getting 0.1 bigger each time. So if we minus 0.1, it's a little smaller. Let's make it 0.2, and that way hopefully we'll... So this is called relative animation. we run into a problem though when it'll actually probably, it's getting harder to press. It's now gone. Often it will flip. So it probably just went and scaled to 0, which means we can't click on it anymore. But if it started going too much smaller, it would actually flip and start growing bigger. Yeah. All right. Anyway. Not bad, but my spurt, this is still kind of awkward. We're not spurting anything that's really nice looking. I just want to show you this. If we put an array, so remember an array, that's a square bracket, and then this whole rectangle right here, kind of put it in square brackets like that. There we go. Okay, that is one thing. If we drop this down, maybe we can see it. Okay, yeah, maybe back to here. So you see the square bracket to square bracket. Here is one thing in that array. Now I'm going to put a comma and put another thing, a new circle. Okay, so now when I press it, it does a circle and a rectangle. And we could put some text. We could say a new label, EL, that says ouch. Okay, and so now it says ouch, and we've got a circle. Maybe we could add a color. How about we make the circle a little bit smaller, like 20, and red. Okay, so isn't that neat? Whatever. You could make it animate different words rather than shapes. It's still awkward having that rectangle. You can also animate the things that we're emitting. So you could make them rotate, like spin. etc., etc. There's all sorts of things, and where you would find that, if you recall, is back on the ZIM site. If you're in ZIM Kids, we don't really let you get to the ZIM site very easily. Like if you, it's this guy right here. Okay, that takes you back to the ZIM site if you want. What were we looking at? Oh yeah, so under examples, remember how there's the collections right here? So this is a collection of things, and this emitter has a collection of different emitters, and here's us making fire. Cool, huh? Every time I press that, we now emit a different color. That I get. Oh, I know where else too. In the examples, we added, where the heck was that? I think it was down now under the magical. We put an emitter configurator. So this is a tool that allows you to try out different settings. You see, this was made with ZIM as well, but different settings for our emitter. Every time you press, it will go there. Okay, and once you finish the settings, you can go grab the code. Okay, or hit copy. And that will, you can now work out your emitting. So right now we're doing circles. This one is emitting squares. This one's emitting triangles, stars, smoke, flakes, fire. But if you got fire, then you want to start doing different things like making the angle, sync the angle to be in a certain direction, like up, I guess, for fire. So that's -90 is up. This 0 is to the right, -90 is pointing up. So now our fire is going up. We might want to increase the time that it's going. That's the life right here. Oh, but why is it falling down? Oh, because of gravity. So we don't really want gravity if we want fire. Whoa, okay. That's negative gravity. So there's a gravity of 0. Okay, that's now lasting too long, isn't it? Or we've got too much force. So if we reduce the force a bit, we also want it to shrink. What happened to our shrink? It's because our max life is too long. Okay, so now we're going to get a smaller life. All those things are starting to die out. There we go. All those particles that we sent were lasting too long. I don't know. I still think it's not shrinking quite as fast as we want. Maybe we don't need as many. That's little bits of fire. All right. There. Anyway, we can add some wind, like that. You can also add various things over here, sinks and other things. What does this do? Lights, grays. Oh, that's for colors of, okay, right. So in terms of if we were doing circles, for instance, now we're doing a bunch of gray circles. There's a bunch of red circles, blue circles. Is there a random? These are ZIM color circles. And again, you can see the code. So how we're doing that is we're doing a circle, but then we're passing an array of colors, and that sends off a variety of colors. So anyway, you can play around with this and make really cool looking things. There's also a bubbling video on playing with the emitter configurator. So there you go. We could make it so that our emitter here is more fun. Where was it? Back here. Rather than just that. But that's kind of silly, isn't it? Do you like it? All right. How about we leave it at that? I am Dr. Abstract. This has been a ZIM Explore. Hopefully you've had fun. You can play around with ZAPPS in the editor. You can go to the ZIM site and look through the Learn section. The Learn section will be wonderful for you. And once again, if you want to see the ZIM Basics, that's a pretty good series right there. Code in 5 minutes shows us making a whole bunch of things in 5 minutes, but it's not always beginner things, but still it gives you an idea of what can be made. If you like creative coding, like making art with code, then you might want to try our CodePen creative coding lessons. You could even drop back to the ZIM and do some of those tutorials. They're pretty easy and fun. If you're older and want to, like if you're a teenager and just can't handle looking at kid stuff, then come into the ZIM School. It's a bit like a textbook there for you. All the best. Have a great day or night. I am Dr. Abstract. This has been a ZIM Explore.